He's got he's got the dickish of all dick abilities, and it's called Double Cross. If Forge hits a creature friendly to him with an attack roll, the attack is...
I'm Nerdarchy Ted.
And I'm Narcus Dave. Welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds.
All right, the D&D movie is coming out or just came out, depending upon when this goes up. So figured there's some information to talk about.
Yeah, and by the time this goes up, we'll have actually seen the D&D movie because we're able to get into like a preview, not because we're Nerdarchy, just because we're Prime. We have Prime memberships.
Yeah, so at the time of this filming, we're actually going to go tomorrow to go check it out. Super excited, but we got stat blocks dropped on D&D Beyond that you can go claim and be able to check out a lot of the core characters of the movie.
Yeah, we're not going to go over everything. It's a free thing. You can go get a free account, open it up, look at it yourselves. We'll go over the more interesting things. We'll throw up the character sheets here as we're talking about them. With that, let's jump in. Who do we got up first?
All right, well, before we even get into that, there's like a little disclaimer thing that's, right above the character sheets that talks about, unusual stat block things and that are unusual weapon attacks. And that, if you possess the item, like you've defeated them, it is not things that are by the item, but it is of the characters themselves. So in one essence, the one thing does thunder damage when it hits with an attack. That's unique to the character, not to the item.
Oh, good point. And not only that, one of the things that I've seen brought up on the internet that people seem a little upset about, imagine that, people on the internet being upset, is the fact that they are NPC stat blocks. They are not full-blown character sheets.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, a stat block is far more useful to me as a dungeon master because it not only gives me some new things to be able to put into my game whole cloth, but some of the things incorporated within these stat blocks are different from stat blocks you see in the monster manual, i.e. with those, unusual attacks. So it gives me things when I'm going to create stuff for my own games, a direction that I can go and not have to worry about like, oh, I'm breaking the game, or I have to incorporate it as part of the item that I then confer to the heroes once they've defeated them.
Yeah, so with that, let's jump in there. First up is our druid, Doric.
All right, Doric is awesome. From the snippets of trailers that I've seen, Doric is my go-to character that I'm excited to learn more about. I love owlbears, I love druids, and this druid can wild shape into an owlbear. How crazy is that?
Also, now we're jumping into the character themselves. All of them include character art, and the character art is the likeness of the actor or actress that is portraying that particular character. So that's kind of cool as well. They have that in there, and they're able to use the likenesses of the actors and actresses.
Yeah, I don't know whether any of the the actors, actresses are fans of D&D, whether they've even played, but to have yourself immortalized as a D&D character is pretty awesome, and to be incorporated with these stat blocks, that's pretty sweet. But Doric also has a cool thing called shaped claw attack, so that means as opposed to striking with a weapon, can totally just wild shape essentially part of her body and attack with a claw attack. And it uses her wisdom modifier instead of her actual, strength or dex.
There is a similar cantrip for druids that already does something similar, but I hate it because it does acid damage, right? And I'm like, why would you make something called Primal Savagery and it's described as you grow claws or fangs or whatever, and then you do acid damage? That makes zero sense to me.
Yeah, even if you were to switch it and have it do poison damage, but there's already poison spray, so they wanted to have something. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. I agree with you, but magic doesn't frequently do slashing, bludgeoning, or piercing damage. So I feel like, I don't know. I feel that would be the direction to go. Have it do a slash, and it's all good.
Well, this version's way cooler anyway.
Indeed.
So, all right. So Doric. Doric is a druid, which is kind of obvious and apparent. 104 hit points, so no slash there. All these characters have fairly high stats. Like there aren't, in this particular stat block, there are no negatives, as you can see. The skills are what you would expect them to be. The resistance to fire damage makes sense. It's a tiefling. Challenge 5. Got that multi attack. This is where things get a little bit interesting, because Dora can make 2 shaped claw or sling attacks, but she can replace one attack with the use of spell casting. We already talked about shaped claw, which does a die 8, so it's not bad. And then then she has a handful of spells. The spells are listed very much like NPCs are now. You get X amount of spells. You can use each of them either at will or X amount of times a day. And then we have our bonus actions, shape change, and basically it just calls out, she can transform into any beast up to challenge rating 3, which makes her pretty bumpy as far as druids go in wild shape. But also included in there is the owlbear as well.
So with Monsters of the Multiverse, they introduced this new way of spellcasting. So like this fits that current mold, but I find it odd because it doesn't jive in my brain the way 5e was originally written. So next up is Edgin, and obviously this is our bard, and he's got some wonderful things going on as well.
He's a bard with a whopping 110 hit points. Obviously human bard, where Doric was a tiefling druid. We've got more uber stats, even more uber than the last one, with 2 16s, 3 14s, and an 18. No slouch. I think the skills are actually a little light for a bard because there's only 4 and they're a human. I think they should have at least 2 more skills, by my math. Also a challenge 5. They have a reinforced loot, which is just a cool attack, right? But the thing about the reinforced loot, or if he chooses to use a short sword, in addition to the weapon damage, they also do 2d10 thunder damage. So this is a pretty bumpy melee bard for the amount of damage they can do.
Yeah, shelling out the damage, and he's going to have multi-attack as well, right?
He does have multi-attack, but unlike Doric, he can't replace those attacks with spells. So in addition to those weapon attacks, you have disorienting words. It's basically vicious mockery on steroids, I would say. Spell casting, it's done exactly the same way. Reactions, he's got inspiring words, so basically bardic inspiration that they can throw out there when someone fails.
So all in all, I think that's a really pumpty character. He's got multi-attack, so he's going to be able to swing twice. So 2 attacks with an additional 2d10 thunder damage on each. That's hitting really hard for a challenge 5. I think if you were to use this as like, an adversary against, a low-level party, he's dropping people like crazy.
Yeah. Now, unlike Doric, though, he can't swap out one of his attacks for a spell casting.
Yeah, and that's saying a lot, but he's got the disorienting words as well as the inspiring words. So if you incorporate him as part of another group, like God forbid you use this entire party against another adventuring party, these guys are going to womp some serious hurt.
So next up we have, I don't know how this character is going to play out in the movie, but he seems like maybe a frenemy or kind of a little more hostile alliance. All right, so we got Forge Fitzwilliam. And he's a human, but he doesn't have a class listed. So far, he is our only evil character at neutral evil. He basically reads like a rogue. He's sitting at 110 hit points. Also, again, great stats. He's got his worst is strength on 11, but his highest being charisma at a 20. Then again, I would say his proficiencies are a little low for a rogue type character, but again, it's an NPC stat block, so they do those differently. Challenge rating of 8, so it's a much higher challenge rating than our other characters thus far. He's got disarming charm, which basically lets him use his charisma modifier to add to his AC as long as he's not wearing armor. Kind of cool. He's got the dickish of all dick abilities, and it's called Double Cross. If Forge hits a creature friendly to him with an attack roll, the attack is automatically a critical hit. So, like, the only thing you can do with it is basically betray people. Like we said, he's roguelike, so evasion. He gets He gets 2 attacks with a dagger or a heavy crossbow. He does extra damage with his weapon attacks. It's poison damage, an extra 76. So that's basically Wolverine poison, I believe. So no slouch there. Bonus action, cutting action, rogue, reaction, uncanny dodge, rogue. Both of them scream.
All right, so all in all, this very light hit points, 110 for a challenge 8. When we had 110, that was a challenge 5. But that unexpected attack of you use this guy to be very very friendly, and then all of a sudden, boom,
Here's how you use them. You if you want to use the party against your party, you insert him into your party first as a friendly NPC, and then when it goes down with the other party, he double crosses.
and you sneak attack with that, or you rogue fireball with that poison damage. Because if, this is 5e, that extra poison damage is still going to double because it ain't 1 D&D yet. So 14 die 6 as an unexpected, poison damage. That's a lot of damage.
Now, I must say from the trailers and everything thus far, Doric and Holga are my favorites so far, but Holga's stat block is the least impressive.
Unfortunately.
So Holga Kilgore, it was such a D&D name, is another one that doesn't give her class. She's just a medium humanoid. 120 hit points. Barbarian, you expect them to have more. It's just faster because she's a barbarian. And also has some pretty bumpy stats, 2 16s and a 19. Intelligence is her dump stat at an 11. Basically, your proficiencies for skills are what we expect. She gets damage reduction to lightning, but it's granted by the Darksteel Great Axe, so it's not even one of her abilities. This is one of the things where specifically when they had called out like, oh, it's not the equipment, it's them, but in this case, it is the equipment. So if someone gets that. Barbarian, so reckless attack is what you would expect from a barbarian type character. Special equipment is the Darksteel Axe, but we already know that. Unarmored defense, same as the Barbarian normally would. Holga makes 3 Darksteel Great Axe attacks with multi-attack or improvised weapon attack because she actually has an improvised weapon in her stat block. So basically anything in Holga's hands does at least a die 6, and it can be thrown as well as a ranged attack. She fights with a great axe, and as a bonus action, she can wrestle. Holga shoves a creature within 5 feet of herself. The creature must succeed a DC 15 strength saving throw or move 5 feet into an unoccupied space of Holga's choice. So Holga has the ability to bully people around on the battlefield.
All in all, nothing uber impressive. Hit points drastically low for a barbarian in that challenge rating. She doesn't even get the damage resistance to go along with it. There's no rage feature to do extra damage. I'm very underwhelmed by this one, whereas the other ones were definitely really cool and interesting. Here, I feel like there's a loss, and since she is a cool character from what you see in the trailer, I was kind of expecting more.
Yeah, like the wrestlers, she should be at least be able to shove people to the ground, right? So at least the rest of the party can whomp on them with advantage. But no, not even that.
Yeah, no tripping for her. Just like, shove.
Next up, we have Simon. And Simon, Amar, I'm not sure how you pronounce that because there's that U in there and it's throwing me off. But anyway, I'm just going to say Amar for now. And you guys can fight with me down in the comments. Tomorrow when I see the movie, I guess I can see how they say it. But yeah, Sorcerer is right in the parentheses there by what kind of character they are. He's only got a piddly 99 hit points. He's got a dump stat of strength, and it's an 8, and so he actually has a negative. But his rest of the stats are okay. They're kind of on par with the standard array. He does a little bit better than some of our other characters when it comes to his skills, but it actually just puts him right to where I would think he would be at 5. So Simon Amor is a medium humanoid. He's a sorcerer. He's got a piddly 99 hit points compared to the rest of them. He's got a dump stat of strength with a -1 from an 8. But he's got some 16s and 17. It basically looks like the standard array. We believe he's a half elf, so that means his skills are a little low, coming in at 5, where he should probably be at like 6. He is a challenge 5, like, all of our other heroes, except for Forge, which is at the 8. Fey ancestry, so that's what leads us to believe he is a half elf. He does have special equipment because he's got a bag of holding, a couple of sending stones, and a deathly token, which is something new, which I don't believe I've seen the deathly token before. He also has wild magic, and his wild magic isn't like wild magic from the player's handbook. When Simon takes 20 or more damage from a single source, or takes damage from a critical hit, he must roll on the wild magic surge table. I like that. It's an interesting way to incorporate it. Simon gets multi-attack. He can make 3 quarterstaff attacks. So he's actually pretty good with his quarterstaff, or a chaos bolt attack, which is probably going to be way better than his quarterstaff. But he can also replace one of his attacks with 1 use of spell casting. So that part is pretty cool. Also, his staff attack does extra force damage, 2d10. So, I mean, if you hit 3 times with that staff, that's 6d10. That's no slouch. It's actually better than his Chaos Bolt, because his Chaos Bolt only does 2d10 and doesn't include the bludgeoning damage from the quarterstaff. But you randomly determine what type of energy it is, which is kind of cool for a Chaos Mage. He's got spells. And then we get to the thing that I think is one of the most exciting parts, is his reaction, which is Sheltering Shield. He can use it 3 times a day. And basically, if he himself receives an attack, or someone within 10 feet of him receives an attack, he can throw up a shimmering 10-foot radius sphere of magical force centered on himself, and it gives everyone within that area resistance to the damage. So super cool.
The Sheltering Shield is really super awesome, but one of the things that stood out to me is he's a challenge 5, but he's got Big B's hand that he can cast. So to me, having something that's so far out of the reach, with the other levels of spells, is again another type of spellcaster that I'm not used to seeing in a stat block. Usually, like, I see like the climbing the chart aspect and all the spell slots, where it's like, no, you know what? He's got some 1s and 2s and 3s, and you know what? Bam, level 5. All right.
Yeah, but the thing to remember is, like, the stat blocks for NPCs don't correlate from challenge to level.
Sure.
Because if you look at the Archmage, they're an 18th level caster, but they're only challenge 12.
Right.
So, like, it almost works out to be like sometimes the challenge could be like 3 times the level.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I understand that, but he doesn't have anything that's intervening. He doesn't have those middle level spells. So, like, again, like, I'm not criticizing the design. I'm looking at it as, oh, this is another way I can do things for my game. If I want to give my NPC a signature spell, I can do that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like from the stat blocks, there's a bunch of things we can kind of like nitpick and steal for our own games, but we'll jump into that at the end. So next up is our last hero, Zenk Yendar. And Zenk Yendar is also a medium humanoid paladin, lawful good. Looks human to me. 157 hit points, so he's got the most hit points thus far. And he's got some pretty bumpy stats. We're looking at 2 16s to 17 and a 19 with a dump stat and dex of 11. So yeah, he's rocking out some of the best stats so far. We've got skills. We've only got a handful, but being a human paladin, you're not going to have a lot of skills anyway. He's got some condition immunities: charmed, frightened, and poisoned. Obviously the charmed and frightened, I think that's from being a paladin, and poisoned for good measure, I guess. Unlike our other heroes, which were like challenge 5s and an 8, he's a challenge 10. He also has a aura of protection. Zenk and his allies within 10 feet of him have advantage on saving throws, so that's a pretty nice aura. So he has multi-attack. Zank makes 3 dagger sword attacks and uses dagger sword flourish. If he can replace dagger sword flourish with cleansing touch if it's available, so that's kind of cool. Get to use weapon attacks or special abilities. Dagger sword, choose the attack that corresponds to the dagger sword's current form. So he's got a magic weapon that changes form. It can be a short sword, or it can be a short sword and a dagger. And then based off of that, he's got dagger sword flourishes, and depending on the form they're in, they do different things, right? Longsword, Zank magically detaches the longsword blade from its hilt, launching the blade at a creature he can see within 30 feet of himself. We've seen this in the trailer for the movie. Target must make a DC 16 dexterity saving throw. On a failed save, the target is impaled by the blade, taking 3d6 plus 4 piercing damage, and is knocked prone. At the end of the current turn, the blade magically reattaches to its hilt. And then you have short sword and dagger flourish. Zank lashes out with both weapons. Each creature of his choice within 10 feet of him must make a DC 16 dexterity saving throw. On a failed save, the creature takes 2d6 piercing damage and has disadvantage attack rolls till the start of his next turn. Successful save, they take half damage and suffer no other effects. Cleansing touch, basically it's kind of like lay on hands, where it does heals a bunch, and also has a lesser restoration effect. Very cool. And as a bonus action, the dagger sword shift, he can basically change it from long sword to short sword and dagger.
I think the item is a really cool thing. I don't know if it's going to be a legit item or if that's just something that he can do. But to me, I look at that, that's another item type that I would be able to play around and have some fun with. All in all, I think the heroes are collectively really awesome. And you could do a lot with them either individually or put them together as a team and put them against your own party.
Well, and also he's getting multi-attacking, making several weapon attacks, and then using the dagger sword flourishes as well. So it's kind of cool because he gets the attack armor class and saving throws at the same time, and do different effects depending. So he has the ability, and he also has the ability to hit a lot of creatures with that short sword and dagger flourish. It's anything within 10 feet of him that he can hit, in addition to making those other 2 attacks. So that's pretty impressive. Or using the longsword, he can make a ranged attack while fighting people close. So I think these are really interesting uses for special abilities. These definitely feel like it should probably be a magic item, but because it's an NPC stat block, who knows?
Yeah, like I said, once it's out there, you can decide what you want to do with it in your game. Whether you want to craft this as a magic item and be able to offer it up to the party once you eventually defeat Zank.
Last but not least, we saved the big baddie and also the highest CR of the group for the end here. So we have Safina, and she's a wizard. She's got 161 hit points. Not bad for a wizard. Again, this is one of the few characters with a negative dump stat in charisma. And then the rest of our scores aren't bad, with an 18 in con and 20 intelligence. And then, some couple 14s and a 12. Light on the skills, but, it's a bad guy. So it's okay. Damage resistance is necrotic. She is a challenge 15. She's got special equipment. She wears magic robe that grants her a +2 bonus to AC, and a +1 bonus saving throw to all the saves. So basically, it's an item of protection plus a little bit. Multi-attack makes Safina can make 3 necrotic strike attacks. Necrotic strike is a melee or ranged spell attack, +10 to hit, so probably not going to miss too much. 120 foot is the range, and it does 5 die 10 plus 5 necrotic damage. And again, she can do that 3 times. So for damage, we're looking at, with 3 attacks, 15 to 150 plus 15. So that she can put the hurt on someone for sure. She's got spell casting. Things like Time Stop, Finger of Death, Edward's Black Tentacles. No slouch there. Also, as an ability, she has Swarm of Meteors, not to be confused with Meteor Swarm, but it does the same exact thing, right? So once a day, she can just call it out Meteor Swarm. And as a bonus action, once a day, she can summon a Wraith.
So all in all, her stat block is incredibly impressive, you know, but what would you expect from a Red Wizard of Thay? I mean, come on, it's you know, it's a thing, right? I love, like, as much as the other stuff is cool, to me, having a melee or ranged spell attack with her Necrotic Strike, that that was my telling, like, ooh, this is fancy, to just be like, all right, I don't need to have disadvantage to use my spell in melee, because it works that way, bitches.
Yeah, there's that, and also just the fact of like, oh, do you need a high level spellcaster villain stat block? This works perfectly for that.
So, you know, this is just an absolute badass, you know, spellcaster, as you said. So, like, whether you're looking to take a different take on the Archmage, you know, this is another building block for you to play off of, and I love it.
Yeah, and you know, even now, like, you know, we're big proponents of stealing wherever you can, borrowing wherever you can, and the unique aspects that they've added to the stat blocks are great for if you're homebrewing something. Some of the work's already been done. You know, do you have a high charisma villain you want to make or a monster you want to make, and you don't want them to wear armor, but you don't want them to have like no armor class. So you go, oh, disarming charm, that's perfect. You know, I can just swap this ability in.
Mhm. You know, and so, like, all in all, these things that are 7 stat blocks that are completely utterly free, that you can go just claim when you have an account. You know, you're going to get access to some really cool stuff, and from a design standpoint, having these unique features is great for those that are homebrewing, or just, you know, hey, I need 7 new stat blocks. Click. So if you enjoy all the content that Nerdarchy comes up with, why not come check out Nerdarchy the store over on the website, or join us on Patreon and support us over there.
Hey, what did you think? What did you think of the Thieves Gallery? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Were you disappointed that they didn't use actual character sheets? Let us know down in the comments below. How would have you liked to seen it done?
While you're down there, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, even go ahead and attune to that notification bell.
Quick reminder, we drop several new videos on the channel every week, so come on back. But you can't wait till then, no worries, we've got you covered. This card up here you can check out. Better 5e Druid inspired by the D&D movie trailer.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.